It is a beautiful thing when your friends are thoughtful and intelligent and challenge you to think in new ways and expand your horizons. I made a post with a bunch of nonfiction recs for this moment, and then I saw Satoria post offering up some speculative fiction text and saying, a lot of people can't necessarily jump into nonfiction straight off the bat, jump into abolitionist nonfiction straight off the bat, because they might not have the understanding to take those texts and use them or to comprehend them fully. That oftentimes reading fiction first, and like abolitionist fiction or speculative fiction that demands you to imagine new worlds, can be that first step on the way to becoming an abolitionist and on the way to reading abolitionist texts and really absorbing it into yourself. And that was something that I hadn't really considered, because when I'm distressed, I reach for nonfiction. And I understand other people don't necessarily do that. So here are some of my favorite works of fiction, and some works of fiction expand your world context outside of yourself, challenge you to grow and develop empathy, and hopefully be that push that you need into developing anti-colonial and abolitionist thought. I haven't read Betty yet, but I have read On the Savage Side, and it is one of the most haunting novels I have ever read. It stayed with me since the day that I read it. Everything Susanna Bulhoa has written, but this is my particular favorite. This book follows a Palestinian woman who ends up in a Hamlet production in the West Bank, and it's just everything I would want in a novel. Everything by Toni Morrison, everything by James Baldwin, everything by Ghassan Kanafani. Haven't read this yet, but have been dying to. Another two that I haven't read yet, but are high on my priority list. This is about as close to nonfiction as a fiction text can get. It's set as the Nakba is happening. Haven't read it, but it has been at the top of my list for an embarrassingly long time. Same with this and this, fiction by Afghan women. Read this, loved it, family saga, Palestinians. Haven't read this yet. It's set in Lebanon and it's Syrian and Lebanese, but Hala is a beautiful writer. Another one I haven't read yet, this is Syrian. Now for romance, because y'all know I love romance and I read a lot of romance, this is what I'm currently reading. It is Different Kinds of Disability Rep, and it is imbued with so much care. Real, which is getting a re-release literally next week. Definitely pick this one up. Now this is my favorite historical romance series of all time, A League of Extraordinary Women by Evie Dunmore, and they're all great, but particularly the last two. This one focuses on labor politics, and this one focuses on kind of imperial colonial relations. Unmarriageable, this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, which as you can see is set in Pakistan. And what I kind of like about retellings that are done in this way is that it gives you characters that you're familiar with and stories that you're familiar with, but then they put them in contexts that are unfamiliar, so it feels more digestible. This is one I actually haven't read yet, but it has been on my TBR forever. Here is another retelling, this time a Persuasion retelling, which is funny because the title made me think it was going to be Shakespeare. It's not. It's Persuasion. It's Jane Austen. Now, obviously, there are a lot of gaps in what I'm recommending. I personally tend to reach most, I think, for Arab fiction, Black fiction, and romance. So please feel free to leave comments below with books that you think people should read that are fiction that can help them think outside of themselves.